Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in here to Publicly Buzzed Live, about to come live at you, not only on YouTube, but also live on X. I was hoping I got this right. I think that they're both up and going. Tonight we're going to be going over a little bit of this new Bryan Kohberger Alibi information that everybody's talking about. I've got some clips to watch. I've got the actual paperwork to go over here. I've got a few things to check out here tonight. Please give this thing a like, share it out, no matter where you're watching it, and thanks for being here. We're going to jump into this.
Let's rock.
Ladies and gentlemen, what is going on? Publicly Buzzed Live is on the air. Thanks for coming in here, making sure I've got this correct. Excited utterance. Thank you for throwing some folks over here with the raid. I'm going to be going on her channel tomorrow. I know that her and Dally just ended a show. So yeah, I'm excited to come over there, and thank you very much. That's freaking sweet. Actually, one thing I need to do out the gate, I need to get the chat in here. So hopefully this works. This is the first time that I've used Restream for both. Let's see if this works. There we go. Hell yeah. Thank you. Nice. This is the first time I've used Restream for both X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and YouTube at the same time. The night that I was live on both with Jay and Bob last week and Dan, that was all through Jay. I was just hanging out. I was lucky enough to connect everything, and I had my own stream, but yeah, this is the first time I've officially done it. We're going to see how it goes. So yeah, welcome in everybody. Thank you so much. Please hit that like, hang out for a bit. We're going to be going over what we're going to be talking about tomorrow night. Okay. We're going to be going over some of this Bryan Kohberger Alibi stuff. I've been looking at this all day long. The co-host tonight is someone that is not actually on the show. Andrea Burkhart, who is the most educated on Bryan Kohberger, all things Bryan Kohberger. If you ask me, she gets deep into a lot of things. We're going to be looking at the actual alibi paperwork here. We're going to be looking at the docs. We're going to be looking at Cy Ray. I think I'm saying this expert witness's name correctly. We're going to be looking at a few different things. I've got some interviews, some clips to go over. So we're going to be hanging out here for just a little bit. Appreciate everyone for coming in here. Hell yes. Hell yes. Real quick, just looking through the chat. Everybody coming through here, welcome in. All new folks, please sub up if you dig the vibe. And hell yeah, really appreciate the shit out of that. That's sweet as hell. Just looking through here real quick. That's right, portaled all the way from Australia. Hell yes. Welcome in here, guys. Welcome in here. Appreciate it. That's awesome. This is crazy. Yeah, really appreciate that. There we go. That's awesome, Gabby. Appreciate that. Hell yeah. Kind of freaked me out here. And fucking Boctrix is working. That's what I'm talking about. Boctrix is in the house. So yeah, let's get over here, and first of all, let's start out with, again, this is from Andrea Burkhart's actual Twitter post from the 17th. I know this has been out here for a minute. I'm a little bit late getting to it, but it's caught my interest, and yeah, let's see what the hell's going on. If you're not following Andrea Burkhart, you're fucking up. She's a fucking smart-ass lady who is on top of this. Again, I'm lucky enough to be able to read these docs and have them honestly kind of, she lets you know what the fuck's going on in here. I don't think I can get that any bigger, but I'm going to go ahead and read them to you. Comes now Bryan C. Kohberger by and through his attorney, Ann Taylor, public defender, and hereby files supplemental response to the demand for an alibi, what we've been waiting on, and in compliance with Idaho Code 19519 and Idaho Criminal Rule 12.1. Mr. Kohberger moved to Pullman, Washington on June of 2022. As an avid runner and hiker, he explored many areas of the Palouse. Of note, he explored Wawawi Park of July of 2022, and this became a favorite location. After the school year began, Mr. Kohberger was busy with classes and work at Washington State University. And I've been in debates all day long. I've actually had I can't, and I put this in a tweet earlier, I can have my mind changed by expert testimony or an expert just stating their opinion almost like that. I'm a fucking moron when it comes to this. So I enjoy, honestly, getting this shit broken down to me. And, it's up to you, whatever opinion you hold. I try not to no pun intended, to execute Bryan Kohberger before he actually gets to trial with my opinion. But at the same time, it's hard not to a lot of times with not just Bryan Kohberger, but many different cases. And I'm guilty of it as well, honestly. Let me get that chat out of there. I don't really like it in there, hanging out there. I'm guilty of it also, especially we started out this true crime channel, Publicly Buzzed, through this case, through the Idaho 4 case. So I was really close to it for a really long time. Basically did 6 months of shows that we only covered this. And I definitely have formed a bit of an opinion through that and through the media. I will 100% admit that. So, and that's not right, man. That's not, at the end of the day, that is not the way any of this should be going down. After the school year began, Mr. Kohberger, and I'm going to show some of those tweets also, and real-time communication and trying to figure this shit out, because everybody wants to stick their heels in the mud and they're stuck in one position. And that's just not the way. That's not the way that I like to do this, honestly. I'd like to have some kind of discourse here so where we can at least communicate openly. And I know it's hard online, especially on X or on Twitter and even here on YouTube, but I really think that we need to fight for that communication to come through better. And I'm guilty of it too, guys. 100%. I'm guilty of being an asshole online. 100%. With classes at work at Washington State University, his running and hiking decreased but did not stop. Instead, his nighttime drives increased. This is supported by data that Mr. Kohberger's phone showing him in the countryside late at night and or in the early morning on several occasions. The phone data includes numerous photographs taken on several different late evenings and early mornings. So some of the stuff that I was already hearing early, that's pretty interesting. They're just saying, listen, in the countryside late at night or in the early morning on several occasions, the phone data includes numerous photographs taken on several different late evenings and early mornings. So they're saying that they're going to be able to show you on different nights, probably not that night, right? I bet there's not a picture from the 13th of November. That would be crazy. That'd be interesting. That would be huge, quite frankly. But even more interesting, if there is a pattern through, hell, if it's from middle of 2022 all the way to November 2023, and you have regular occurrences of pictures being taken of him out, whether that's of the night sky, stargazing, whatever you want to say there, that's pretty freaking interesting. But they're not putting a date in there right there. They're saying that there are photos included of this happening in the late evenings and early mornings, including in November. They did say including in November, depicting the night sky. Mr. Kohberger was out driving in the early morning hours on November 13, 2022, as he often did to hike and run and or see the moon and stars. He drove throughout the area south of Pullman, Washington, west of Moscow, Idaho, including Wawawi Park. Partial corroboration. Mr. Kohberger intends to offer testimony of Cy-Ray, CSLI expert, cell tower, cell phone, and other radio frequency. I found a lot of stuff on this guy today. Again, I started out, I did a little bit of Googling. I ended up on this Reddit page. And from there, there's multiple, of course, opinions in here. But it seems that not everywhere has necessarily accepted this dude's technology that he invented. He created. I shouldn't say invented, but maybe that is the correct terminology. Maybe invented, but pretty much everyone has. So I started out the gate on the wrong footing when I was kind of doing my tweets about Cy-Ray earlier today. But there's still a lot of interesting quotes that I've found. There's a lot of even the two states that I found, Colorado and Michigan, that did not accept this. That's still pretty fucking interesting, and that leads credence to the possibility of this judge, since it's happened in the past, not letting this expert in. The likelihood of that seems unlikely, since he's been, to the knowledge that I've gained today, used over 100 times in different trials, and there's not been an issue. But still, you have to think about something like that, and that's kind of where my brain was going. Maybe playing devil's advocate. To show that Bryan Kohberger's mobile device was south of Pullman, Washington, and west of Moscow, Idaho on November 13, 2022. That Bryan Kohberger's mobile device did not travel east on the Moscow-Pullman highway in the early morning hours of November 13th, and thus could not be the vehicle captured on the video along the Moscow-Pullman highway near Floyd's cannabis shop. Additional information. I love that weed has made it into the story now. Just the smallest little mention there. Additional information as to Mr. Kohberger's whereabouts as the early morning hours progressed, including additional analysis by Mr. Ray, will be provided once the state provides discovery requested, and now subject to an upcoming motion to compel. If not disclosed, Mr. Ray's testimony will also reveal the critical exculpatory evidence further corroborating Mr. Kohberger's alibi was either not preserved or has been withheld. So not preserved means the possibility of, if there was an alibi that could be exculpatory evidence that could get this motherfucker off, and they've not preserved it, meaning they've deleted it, right? That would be fucking crazy. And if that's provable, that would be even more crazy. So that led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole. And today, so I started out my morning with, hold on, let me get in here, let me look at the chat, see where you guys are at right now. So I started morning off by going down this rabbit hole, essentially. Found some interesting stuff here. Cy Ray, the geolocation expert everyone is talking about. This is going to be something that I have over here. This is from people of the state of Colorado versus Christopher Russell Jones. This is from 2022. I think there's a year on here. Yeah, September 2022 is when the date was filed anyways. But through here, there's numerous things that I was kind of, admittedly cherry picking as I was reading through here. But there's also some super interesting quotes. This one right here, this Cy Ray's credibility, and this is what I was tweeting. Take this however you want. Instantly is going to be called into question is what I was thinking, because a quote from him. I'm more of an engineer than an engineer. That seems like a crazy quote to me. And I will put the link here for this in the chat for anybody that wants to do any digging on their own and read through that. It's pretty interesting stuff. But essentially, they're not letting this track software into this trial. They're calling it unreliable. And I'll read a little bit here. And again, I found this initially through Reddit. This guy's name is out there now, essentially, because he's going to be used by the defense of Bryan Kohberger. This is from 6 days ago. Among many things, he is a key witness for the prosecution, and this is from Thomas Clayton and Michael Beard murder trial. I think they give some links to this as well. But I was really just kind of looking for some information here. And this is interesting on its own. Cy Ray is the founder of ZX Corporation and lead RF engineer for 10-2 Technologies. Cy's entrepreneurial career with ZX began after serving 20 years in law enforcement. Now, there's another really interesting part here. It seems the police, law enforcement, have notoriously used this guy. I'm not even sure if a defense team has used this guy, and I'm under the impression now, honestly, that Ann Taylor is a master chess player, is what's happening here, honest to God. I bet Bill Thompson is so fucking pissed that he didn't think about getting this dude. Or, is he going to fight it tooth and nail at this point now that he doesn't have this dude? And listen, we can't let this guy in because of all the reasons that we're going to kind of read through here. Again, after serving 20 years in law enforcement, where he spent time as a SWAT operator, homicide sergeant, and directing fugitive missions, some of his work has been featured on... Let me see if I make that... Hold on. A little bit bigger. No, I can't. What the fuck? There we go. Some of his work has been featured on several episodes of 48 Hours, 2020, the Discovery Channel, and Dateline, showcasing his investigative and technological enterprise. Cy spent time in Afghanistan as a field advisor for an undercover team targeting improvised explosive devices, IEDs. Cy established ZX, probably butchering that, in 2014 is a one-stop shop for law enforcement as it pertains to cellular geolocation mapping, analysis, and training. The software he designed currently leads the industry in geolocation mapping of RF data. While devoting his career to bringing advanced training and investigative technology to law enforcement, Saul is a subject matter expert in the field of geolocation mapping and identifying target sets. Size geolocation expertise in the field of radio frequency. There's a couple of weird quotes there. And apparently this guy taught himself coding and then went on to invent this technology that is now used and is being used currently by the Bryan Kohberger team on his phone. So, I mean, I'm not saying the guy's not smart. That's pretty fucking impressive. The software he designed currently leads the industry in geolocation mapping of RF data while devoting his career to bringing advanced training and investigative technology to law enforcement. Sai is a subject matter expert in the field of geolocation mapping and identifying target sets. Sai's geolocation enterprise in the field of radio frequency has advanced into RF engineering of detection devices with 10-2 technologies during the past 2 years. His accomplishments include engineering RF drone detection sensors used by the NFL at the 2015 Super Bowl, and engineering RF tracking and security technology for law enforcement and military applications. I mean, this is pretty wild shit. In his free time, Sai enjoys spending time with his family. But as you kind of go through here and you kind of find a little bit more information, dig down here just a little bit. And yeah, he does. He runs a production podcast company. He has a podcast. I found that as well. So he's very active in the entertainment side of true crime, if you will. Let's see right here. Wasn't his work only deemed not credible by one judge? And here we go. There are now a minimum of 5 cases where ZX was not allowed, including United States versus Evans, People versus Valdez, United States versus Hill, and both Arizona. I don't have the case info, and Colorado. Both the judges found his work not credible. They gathered this from other experts in the field, actual experts in the field, you know, and a lot of bias can be on the back end of some of these comments as well, guys, as we all know. ZX does not use software and methodologies that are scientifically solid, backed by peer-reviewed articles and widely accepted both in the legal system as well as the relevant cellular analysis community. ZX has been deemed the least accurate method of tracking a cell phone. To hypothesize the defendant's location where the alleged crime occurred. And then down here, you get into this right here. We're just going to read just a little bit here. Introduction. The court makes the following findings of fact by preponderance of evidence in this action. The people charge Jones with 3 counts: stalking a violation, violation of protection order, violation of bail bonds condition. Jones has pleaded not guilty. And this is the one out of Colorado we just mentioned. And a 5-day jury trial, which is consolidated with another case, is set to begin. This is back 2022 again. All 3 counts stem from Jones allegedly driving by the apartment of his former fiancée in violation of the protection order. According to her son, they saw a red Dodge Ram, which they suspected might belong to Jones, driving through their apartment complex on 2 occasions. The investigating officer reviewed security footage for the second day in which SV supposedly saw Jones, and he noted a red truck driving through the complex, but the truck wasn't a Dodge, it was a Toyota. Further, the Toyota had a camper in the back, and SV conceded that Jones's truck doesn't have a camper. Himes later obtained a search warrant for Jones's cell phone and got call detail records spanning a range of time from his cell phone towers in the area. Law enforcement then analyzed the data using a software called Trax, which purports to map Jones' cell phone location. Jones lives in Wyoming and works in Colorado. His work takes him through I-25 since he drives a truck. The results from Trax created an estimate for the location of Jones's cell phone. Again, this is just kind of some interesting information as it pertains, again, to what we would be looking at pertaining to the cell phone and the car, even of Bryan Kohberger, with what the state's trying to pin on him, right? The location of Jones's cell phone that placed him near SV's apartment nearly every day between December 30th, 2021 and January 11th, 2022. In his motion challenging Trax's reliability, Jones objects on multiple grounds, but in essence, he contends that Trax is junk science and thus unreliable under Rule 702. Initially, Jones's motion was quite broad and purported to challenge the use of cell site location information about his phone. But at the hearing, he conceded that such information had been widely accepted as reliable. As the U.S. Supreme Court has noted, typical cell site location information works as follows. Cell phones continuously scan their environment looking for the best signal, which generally comes from the closest cell site. Most modern devices, such as smartphones, tap into the wireless network several times a minute whenever their signal is on, even if the owner is not using one of the phone's features. Each time the phone connects to a cell site, it generates a time-stamped record known as a cell site location information, CSLI. The precision of this information depends on the size of the geographic area covered by the cell site. The greater the concentration of cell sites, the smaller the coverage area. As data usage from cell phones has increased, wireless carriers have installed more cell sites to handle the traffic. This has led to increasing compact coverage areas. So Jones instead narrowed his attack on Trax, which is markedly different. Unlike typical cell site location information, Trax takes CDRs, essentially cell phone records from providers, and uses that data to craft maps of a cell phone's location. To develop the maps, Trax reviews its cell tower database of 50 million antennas and uses that data to create an estimated handoff range, the area where Trax thinks the cell phone is handed off to another cell site. In other words, if the data leaves Trax's mapping area, Trax assumes the phone's moved on to another site. To determine if its handoff range is accurate, Trax looks at the specific cell site antenna and plots a 60-degree cone around it. Within the cone, Trax looks at the 3 cell sites that are close to the source tower, takes the average distance between them and multiplies that by 0.97. Trax's architect, Cy Ray, described his method as a trial and error process in which Trax employees go on the ground, pick 10 different antennas with different shapes, and attempt to break down the differences between them. Ray said that looking at the density of coverage gave him most accurate results. According to him, the mathematical principles upon which he relied are very simple. Look at tower density, which is determined by cell sites that were within the proximity of azimuth for the target cell site. We look at the averages, how far away those cell sites are, which impacts that density, and then we cross-reference with our results from the drive test, which is 0.97 factor. We asked how Ray came up with the 0.97 figure. He said it's a data-driven figure based upon the company's 3 million drive tests. How can we represent what we're seeing in our data across 50 million cell sites, is how Ray put it. And 0.97 figure, which is claimed as a constant, is what gives him the best results. See, a lot of that's just crazy. I don't understand a lot of that. Hold on. While Ray stands by his formula, he hasn't gained traction in the scientific community. The methodology and algorithm aren't published or subject to peer review, and they've been routinely labeled as junk science by relevant scientific community. Ray revealed the formula during his testimony, but that's not publishing or subjecting the formula to the scientific scrutiny. It's the opposite, because it has the effect of sandbagging anyone who wishes to challenge it. To illustrate the blowback from the scientific community, one article describes Trax's mapping as a profoundly flawed practice. The article also noted that no radio frequency books, journal papers, or patents could be found that have ever used such a shape to represent sector coverage, isolated or in the best server scenario. Furthermore, not even the crudest approximations do any radio frequency tools process or any of the mapping applications used by radio frequency engineers in their everyday work for network operations, such as an approach. So they're, throwing shit all over this. Another article highlighted the shortcomings of CDRs, explaining they are merely records used by cell phone companies for the purpose of financial transactions, such as generating bills to the subscriber and settling accounts with other carriers. The author further elaborated that CDRs contain limited information, don't have documented error rates or validation methodologies, and it's unclear how accurate the actual location information in these records is. So, and again, the link, I'll put this in there one more time if anybody wants to dig in. This is many pages. It's a lot longer than even that, but it's still pretty fucking interesting. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, holy shit, there's a lot more here than just this is the end all be all for, again, the defense bringing in the cell phone expert, which is going to have the prosecutors, the state is going to be bringing in their own cell phone expert, and it's going to be, again, our story against your story. But I found it pretty interesting that if the scientific community doesn't actually accept this, okay, but I mean, and then because we're going to get into it here, because I'm an idiot. Who is not an idiot is Andrea Burkhart. And first I want to show just a little bit of this. I've got a couple of, this is hard not to break away from. This is a great fucking interview right here from Law and Crime, but we're just going to listen to a little bit of this. The beginning of it, they do a really good job of kind of breaking out a little bit of the beginning of the story, and then once Andrea gets in here, she adds a little bit more to it. But then I'm going to fast forward to the end once they get into Psy, and then I've also got a little bit more information here that I want to get into when they start breaking down Kohberger from this stream with a bunch of, I mean, very smart dudes, a lot of lawyers. Andrea Burkhart was on this as well. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of a breather, and we're going to go into this, but holy shit, this has had me peaked all day fucking long.
Welcome to the party, pal.
And we're not fucking around. Everybody that's hanging and banging in here today, I appreciate the shit of it. Thank you all very fucking much. And yeah, we're going to keep rolling here. I want to make sure the sound is going. And yeah, we're going to be diving in this tomorrow night on Excited Utterances channel also, man. I think it's this one. And I haven't talked Kohberger live for a while. It's been a minute. If you look through my old past history of lives, it's that's all it is. It's tons, not all. It's been, since probably from November of when it happened till about June of 2023, I was in deep. So
our team constantly.
I've been waiting for this trial.
Constantly work. We are on this. This is our priority. Bryan's our priority. One of the things in the state's motion for scheduling order had to do with
the architect. The architect's in here hanging out. He's fucking awesome as shit. And one thing I did want to show, I don't remember exactly where it was when we were kind of discussing, but we were all in there. We had tons of some good conversations in here, man. Right here, Excited Utterance in here. But hold on. But he's a smart ass motherfucker too, man. I don't know exactly when we were kind of getting into the meat of it, but yeah. And at the same time, I mean, like I started out my day kind of going into this stuff as, because I hate to say it like that, but I'm a fucking idiot, dude. When I'm going into this, and if I have some expert saying it to me, like if I was on the jury, I'd be terrible. I'd just be like, I believe that guy. That guy's definitely a guy. Then the next one would come up, it'd be but from the defense. The previous one's from the prosecution. The exact opposite would happen. I'd be, no, actually, that guy's got a really good fucking point there. I don't know. I'm being swayed. I don't know, man. Like, it's easy for me to change my opinion in real fucking time on some of this stuff. Like and it's also easy to get stuck in the mud on a lot of this stuff. I get it, and I've done it too, but I'm trying real hard to break from that, man. I mean, because Andrea makes a lot of fucking good points that have me questioning a lot of things just from a lot of stuff I literally just watched today. Like, I don't know.
The alibi defense. The state asserts in its scheduling order that our time has expired, and that just can't be.
Suspected quadruple killer Bryan Kohberger has presented an official alibi defense on where he says he was on the night of the brutal University of Idaho killings. We're going to break it down with criminal defense attorney Andrea Burkhart. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Hey everybody, this is a Law and Crime legal alert. Google Incognito tracked users' browsing data without their knowledge 13th, 2022. That, of course, is when 4 University of Idaho students were brutally stabbed to death in an off-campus rental home in Moscow, Idaho. Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, all killed. Kohberger, a former Washington State University grad student, was arrested 6 weeks after the killings. Police tied him to the murders through cell phone data, which we'll talk about, surveillance footage, and, of course, DNA. Prosecutors saying that the DNA on a knife sheath left behind at the crime scene is a statistical match to Bryan Kohberger. We have dedicated several episodes of Sidebar before going into this evidence and even having debates about it. But now we have something new to discuss. The alibi. So last week, Bryan Kohberger's defense team was given a deadline to submit an alibi defense. This is a requirement under Idaho law. And they submitted their filing just in time. And we're going to go through it real quick, and then we're going to talk about it.
It's going to be a long trial.
Mr. Kohberger moved to Pullman, Washington in June of 2022. As an avid runner and hiker, he explored many areas.
Can they break it down to me too, Pokemon?
Of the Palouse. Of note, he explored Wawa Way Park in July of 2022, and this became a favorite location. After the school year began, Mr. Kohberger was busy with classes and work at Washington State University, and his running and hiking decreased but did not stop. Instead, his nighttime drives increased. This is supported by data from Mr. Kohberger's phone, showing him in the countryside late at night and or in the early morning on several occasions. The phone data includes numerous photographs taken on several different late evenings and early mornings, including in November, depicting the night sky. Mr. Kohberger was out driving in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, as he often did to hike and run and or see the moon and stars. He drove throughout the area south of Pullman, Washington, west of Moscow, Idaho, including Wawa Way Park. Mr. Kohberger intends to offer testimony of Cy Ray, CSLI expert, cell tower, cell phone, and other radio frequency. Curricula Vitae is attached to show that Bryan Kohberger's mobile device was south of Pullman, Washington, and west of Moscow, Idaho on November 13th, 2022. That Bryan Kohberger's mobile device did not travel east on the Moscow-Pullman highway in the early morning hours of November 13th, and thus could not be the vehicle captured on video along the Moscow-Pullman highway near Floyd's cannabis shop. Okay, now let me just quickly put into context why all of that is important. Because in the probable cause affidavit from law enforcement, it states on the night of the murders...
Ricky giving out a membership here. Who's going to get that? Sam I Am, grab that son of a bitch. Get in here, dude. Get in here. Why you fucking around, son? Huh? Huh? Appreciate that. And we are on a mission to get to 10 motherfucking K. Jay has set those wheels in motion, and we're going to get there, baby. We're hustling. We in it. We in it to win it. 10K.
At 2:42 a.m., they say Kohberger's phone was connecting to a tower that covers his apartment in Pullman, Washington. 5 minutes later, the data shows he leaves the residence and travels south through Pullman, Washington. Now, this is consistent with the movement of the white Hyundai Elantra that was caught on surveillance tapes, the car they say he was driving. Then the phone stops responding to the network. Prosecutors say he shut off the phone purposely to avoid detection. Doesn't come back onto the network until 4:48 a.m., 2 hours later, after when prosecutors say the killings happened. And then it hits the towers covering the area to a highway south of Moscow. Then between 4:50 a.m. and 5:25 a.m., the phone hits a tower showing the phone is traveling towards Uniontown, Idaho, back to Pullman, Washington. 5:30 a.m., hits the area providing coverage for his residents, and that is consistent with the...
Thank you for the support, Jersey Jane. Always coming through. Love you. That's absolutely amazing.
Phone is back at the residence, consistent with the movement of the Hyundai Elantra. So we have these two competing narratives. Let's talk about it. I'm joined right now by Andrea Burkhart, criminal defense attorney. You can check out her YouTube page at A. Burkhart Law. Her Twitter X profile is the same handle. Andrea, thanks so much for coming back here on Sidebar.
Like I'm hosting it.
Always a pleasure, Jesse. Great to see you.
What do we make of the alibi?
I'm actually being interviewed
Well,
by
I think that there are some juicy little nuggets that we have in this particular alibi. What they are essentially giving notice of is that they believe they're going to be able to present evidence, digital forensic evidence from Bryan Kohberger's cell phone that is going to enable them to separate the movements of the cell phone from the movements of the white car that police were attempting to trace the movements of through these various pieces of surveillance video. And so the probable cause affidavit had originally identified this white car, this unidentified white vehicle, as moving towards the direction of SR 270, which is the Moscow-Pullman highway, at about 2:47 in the morning. And it does not specifically say in the PC affidavit, it doesn't reference the video that this alibi notice is referencing about Floyd's cannabis shop. So we can infer from that the police have followed up. They've continued to collect surveillance video. They were able to locate this one by Floyd's cannabis shop, which they believe is the same white Elantra. But the problem is that is significantly closer to the Idaho border. It's more like directly east of Pullman, rather than the southwesterly direction that they claim they're going to be able to show his vehicle was moving in the other direction.
I am made of questions, and I will start with the cell phone evidence, and then we'll get into this idea of where he could have been. Because I think it was best explained by the Gonsalves family. They released a statement to KHQ
play
News,
for just a minute.
and they say that they feel, quote, even more confident in the prosecution.
I like the beginning, but then I want to play the end.
They say the alibi quote, is in direct conflict with the probable cause affidavit that states the defendant's phone was turned off between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. They say, so if the defendant was driving around and there's cell phone information that he was in a different place, it would either be before or after the times of the murders. And I have to tell you, I think that's a good point, because I couldn't tell from this alibi filing, is the defense saying that we're going to show you that he was in a different place while the phone was operating? Or are we going to say that the phone was on when law enforcement says it was off?
So I think there are two responses to that. So the first thing I want to point out is that the probable cause affidavit very specifically does not say that his telephone was turned off at the time. What it says is that his phone stopped connecting to cellular.
See, that's what I'm looking for right there. That's what I'm looking for. She's right. Like,
resources, and that's also consistent with the cell phone going out of range.
There's some stuff with the car, like, you know, I honestly think, here's the thing, at the end of the day, we don't know every single thing. You always hear that, you know, and the defense has you know, they don't, because they've been fighting for it, but essentially should have the surveillance footage that could potentially show this car, right, that is being seen on multiple surveillance cameras from Pullman to Moscow. The question is, how clear would that actually be, right? Like, how clear? You're not going to be seeing him. You're not going to be able to see Bryan Kohberger in the driver's seat. The odds of that are insanely low. Like, that's just not going to happen. And it's dark. It's already dark. And knowing that those surveillance cameras are notoriously shitty. Like, there's Ring cameras are better, right? So is that a possibility, though? Is there something somewhere along the way that has connected the license plate before the change? Like, there's tons of little bitty things that I could see that could connect ultimately and come back to that, the reasoning that we have this dude arrested. You know, I know that everybody wants to say it's just the DNA that they have is basically nothing. Being touch DNA, that could basically just have been gotten onto the sheath button by way of him touching someone that then touched the button. I totally get that. Totally understandable. When you put a lot of these things together and you start making a list, they all start making a little bit more sense to me, is what it looks like could potentially happen. But at the same time, man, when you hear some of these arguments, especially from someone like Andrea Burkhart and these professionals, these really good lawyers that I'm about to show you over here, it makes you, they have a really good debate, though, because you have some in here that are asking the questions that you would want to be asked, or you would want to hear. So
note that this direction that Bryan Kohberger claims that he was taking, this is going out into the rolling hills of the Palouse, out into a remote area that's near the Snake River. And so this is the type of area where it is quite common to have, you know, very thin coverage. This is, you know, 1,000-acre wheatland farms, and the hills can interfere with the service significantly. So his story in that respect, I believe, can certainly be consistent with his phone going out of range. But the second response that I think I would have to that is that there's another little hint here in the probable cause affidavit where they say there's likely to be more evidence here because there is a pending motion to compel. And what this suggests is that the defense has submitted the FBI's analysis and the data that they relied on to do all of the cellular location work. They have submitted that to their own expert. He's reviewed it. Based on that, very common, the expert will want to follow up with either other pieces of raw data that haven't originally been produced, produced, or with just other questions, things that perhaps aren't clear from the report. So there are a number of items, I believe it was about 12 or so, like a dozen or more items that are going to be the subject of this motion to compel coming up. Now, we don't know exactly what they are, but we do see this very strong language here in the notice of alibi that Mr. Ray is going to say that if this is not disclosed, it is because it is exculpatory and it either was not preserved or has been withheld. So this is a very strong statement from the defense that they have a lot of confidence based on their expert that this information they have been requesting and that has not been disclosed to them for quite a few months. The first request was from November of 2023. That they've been waiting and they think that this is going to exonerate him.
Real quick, if you can tell us why would the prosecution allegedly not have turned that information over to the defense then?
Well, I mean, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Their suggestion is, well, maybe it wasn't preserved. Maybe it was, deliberately suppressed. Those are certainly possibilities. Another option, however, can simply be that we have seen throughout the course of this case already, there is a little bit of difficulty with coordination between local law enforcement and the FBI.
Right.
We had a previous hearing where disclosure of some of this FBI work was the subject of it, and the prosecutor was just basically saying, like, look, we're trying here, but they're not under our jurisdiction, so we have to go by their rules. And the defense had indicated, look, if you give us a deadline, that's probably going to help, convince the FBI that they need to turn this stuff over. So it could be something as simple as that they're stuck in a bureaucratic process and just need some kind of definitive ruling from the court that they're entitled to it before it will be turned over.
We'll get back to that in 1 second. I want to go back to the idea of the cell phone, though, because again, assuming that he was in an area where
I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat here, guys. I couldn't stop this one earlier. Like, this one is good. It's going to be hard for me to stop it right now, but I'm going to move ahead because at the end, they really start getting into the details of this dude, of Ray. So
Maxwell going out and obtaining a bunch of observational data and deriving mathematical constant.
Strengthen this as somebody, he was following them, he was stalking them, he was studying them, he was waiting for the opportunity. If there's no connection they can make between Bryan Kohberger and these victims, that is not a story that's easily sold to a jury, and I think that's problematic for the prosecution. I do want to ask you about Ray, though, because again, it seems to me that this alibi defense is relying a lot on this potential expert called by the defense. Now, my understanding is that Mr. Ray is a 20-year law enforcement veteran. He's worked over 1,000 death investigations. He's been an expert witness, testified in over 100 cases, including cell phone analysis. Having said that, NBC has reported that Mr. Ray, who founded this company called ZX, his credibility has come into question. And there was one case in particular where he was called to testify, and this district... I mean,
it's not good. It's honestly not good if an expert's ever, you should not have any kind of... Well, I was about to say, you should not have any kind of stain on your name. But at the same time, I don't know. I need to find out more information about this guy, because if other people in that field don't take his science, I don't know how to take that necessarily. Like if they're not accepting this thing that he's created, he literally invented this technology, but just like science in other fields, right? A lot of times it's hard to get a new technology or a new idea rather in that community moving. So, but this has also been for 10 years now. He created it in 2014. So again, I need to do some more digging here, but
court judge Juan Villasenor said that ZX's tracks mapping could not come into court, that it was inadmissible. It said there was a sea of unreliability. The judge wrote, quote, "For one, the court doesn't find Ray credible. He inflated his credentials, inaccurately claiming to be an engineer." The judge goes on to say that Ray has no qualifications, licenses, or credentials to support saying that he was an engineer.
That could never be good.
Now, maybe that was a specific issue, but I found it interesting that
it was a little bit of a
his
black
credibility
eye just
was
on your
called into
career,
question,
because
but
when people are going to be looking that up, they're going to find that. They're going to find what we found today rather easily also. So
he's very well known in the industry. He's appeared, I think, in documentaries.
But also super well known because he's also in the entertainment side of true crime, it
Mr.
appears.
Ray, and him
I
being a
never heard of
potential
him, but that means
key
nothing.
witness for Bryan Kohberger.
Well, I think you're
Feels
right
pretty
that his
vast.
law enforcement background is really pretty significant here, because this technology that he did develop, this tracks software system, this has been used by law enforcement all over the country. And yes, there's this case in Colorado where the trial court refused to admit it. There have been other cases, however, that have reached the opposite result. There's a federal decision, I believe, out of the Sixth Circuit reviewing a Daubert hearing that was held on it in that case that upheld it as being a valid technique to use in court. I did go and look through that opinion. I read that opinion that excluded his evidence, and I did find some of the criticism to be just honestly a little bit strange. Inflating credentials, I think, that's legitimate. You know, you should not do that. You should be pretty precise about what your qualifications for something are. So that would certainly raise a concern if he were to repeat something like that in this case. But in terms of his actual
I don't know if he ever said it and it's not true, that's not good. She says repeat in this case. If it's provable that he did state that he's an engineer and he's not an engineer, there's one crazy quote that I am going to show. I could find it here real quick. Right here. Yeah, I might have even said this earlier. I'm more of an engineer than an engineer. Did I even read this part earlier? With that in mind, the court held a Shrek hearing, which I had to look that up earlier to learn more. They're the people called Michael Fegley, a former police officer who now works for ZX, but he has no scientific background and couldn't testify about Trax's ranging formula or algorithm. The hearing thus was continued so that the people could summon the right witness. Ray was that witness. He is ZX's founder. He has an associate's degree, but no bachelor's degree or any other academic credential. He's not a professional engineer or a radio frequency engineer. At the hearing, Ray claimed, however, that he was an engineer. In his words, he's more of an engineer than an engineer. That's not good. That's not a good thing to say. That's not a great quote. Despite his lack of qualifications, he estimated that Trax is 94 to 96% accurate, because at the beginning when he sits down and they're, he's not going to have a problem. The defense is going to be saying, why are you an expert, right? But when the prosecution gets up there and they start going over, so let's talk about you being an engineer, or what your opinion is on engineers, and maybe they bring up this exact quote. I wouldn't put it past him. He reached that figure by conducting test drives in which ZX employees drive around the coverage area and eyeball Trax's maps for accuracy. He also created a formula, the algorithm upon which Trax relies to give its estimates.
Technique. The criticism was basically that he had done a massive amount of observational work to collect data to look at what actual transmission from towers was. And what this is doing is it's reconciling the mathematical, abstract ability to calculate what a theoretical range of coverage would be with what you actually see happening on the ground. Because in the real world, everybody knows there can be interference with radio signals. That can be heat can affect it, temperature, gamma rays, just all kinds of different atmospheric conditions can affect the real world measurement. So he had done something like 2.5 million measurements to get all of this observational data, from which he was then able to derive this mathematical principle that showed him, if you map the cell tower coverage this way, that is going to be the most accurate way to actually depict it. The trial judge didn't like that at all. His criticism was, well, this isn't based on any type of scientific principle. You can't explain the mechanism for it. There's no theoretical underpinning for it. And I find that quite strange for a couple of reasons. I mean, first off, the entire school of electromagnetics was accomplished this way. It was accomplished by Maxwell going out and obtaining a bunch of observational data and deriving mathematical constants from it. So it's a peculiar criticism of the scientific method in that sense. But it's also problematic to me because forensic techniques are routinely allowed into court that have significantly less observational validata than Mr. Ray's method does. An example that I would use would be something like ballistics, where the standard is simply whether the technician believes that there is sufficient agreement between the item that he's examining and the like test piece or something like that. They never tell you what sufficient agreement is. There's never been an observational study that would give you that type of validation, give you error rates or things like that. So just given the sort of mess, the criticisms of a lot of forensic science in general, to me, this particular opinion seems to be an outlier.
Then again, Judge John Judge, who's overseeing the Kohberger case, could agree and say, you know what, I don't think this should be allowed in. I don't think Cy Ray should be a qualified expert. But having said that, let's say he is called to the stand.
They
and
only
he
have
does
one picture.
testify.
That's all they're showing.
How is the jury supposed to sort this out? Is it just a battle of the experts and it becomes a question of credibility?
My house. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up.
What is this motherfucker eating? For real? What do I even see? Is this a giant thing of cauliflower? Is this a bone with some leaves on it? Some little pieces of corn? Maybe this is part of the steak. No? I don't know what the hell's going on. What is this? Is this a potato? Is this meat? Is this a steak? Is this cream? Is this milk? Is this how you drink your milk, Dan? And this fucking sword that he's going to cut something with.
We're going to weigh Cy Ray's credibility over the prosecution's experts on cell phone analysis, because it seems to me you were having two sides looking at a series of data and saying two diametrically opposed things, which happens all the time in trial. I mean, even use of force experts have different opinions about something, about whether lethal force should have been used, and DNA experts. There's always a battle of the experts. But is that what this case is ultimately going to come down to, a battle of the experts, and who do you believe?
Yeah, I mean, it very well could, because this is such significant evidence. Obviously, if they can place him somewhere that is not the King Road residence at the time of the murders, that's pretty dispositive of his involvement in the case. So I think you're right that the battle of the experts can be quite common. And in those situations, it often comes down to not just because the jury is certainly evaluating credibility, but they're doing that not just based on, your background and your qualifications and stuff like that. They're looking, how well does your explanation comport with the evidence that you're relying on? Like, it's not just point. Do I believe your conclusion because of who you are that said it. It's what's the process, the analytical process that you reach to get to that conclusion. And so that's where I think if there are issues that the defense is suggesting here with, withholding evidence, not relying on certain evidence, pretending some of the data doesn't exist, anything like that, those are the types of factors that can have an enormous influence in determining which of the experts is going to be seen as more credible.
I want to close this out by going back to the car because...
Okay. I want to go over here just for a moment. This is about a 20-minute conversation. I don't know if we'll get through all of it. Maybe we will. It's not that long. It's been a good night. Thanks, everyone, again, for hanging and banging. I really appreciate it. Before we do go into it, I'm just going to do a little bit of a shout-out real quick for everybody that came through here and is showing some love. I love you guys so much coming through. Really appreciate it. All the new folks that's come through here. Hell, fuck yeah. My brother from another mother. Never mind. My actual brother with the same mother. I was one of the J mode there. No, Dan, Ricky Cougarback, Dan the Man, Dandy Savage, my actual real human brother. Gifted out of membership. Thank you so much. And then Jersey Jim coming in behind with the $2. Show some love for our creators and mods. Thank you so much, Jersey Jim. Love you. And then Cammy Q came through here, tossing out 5 of them sons of bitches. Holy shit. What are we doing? What are we doing? We're not fucking around. That's what we're not doing.
I'm telling you like it is,
and then Pam Coogan coming through with the $4.99. Always here to support. 10K around the corner. Get it, Steve. And we are working on that son of a bitch. Working on it, Jay. Doing the damn thing. Helping us out. Bob helping us out. We're going to get there. Keep hustling, baby. Keep your eyes on this channel. We're going to be covering Karen Reed trial, which is absolute chaos and madness. Come over here and hang out, guys. Stick around with all the crew. And then, of course, and then once Kohberger gets started, it's going to be nuts. But let's check this out here for just a second. This is pretty interesting. They start to get into the Kohberger stuff, and of course, Andrea Burkhart is the main person here for this.
And to pull if they can, and there's a lot of people in Manhattan, so they got that going for them. as opposed to like Kohberger where no one is there. So that makes it much more difficult to find a pool of people who haven't heard about it. I mean, Manhattan is huge.
That's fair, and that's a great segue. Andrea, anything going on with Bryan Kohberger?
We did. We had a big development this week with Bryan Kohberger, which was the supplemental notice of alibi. So since last summer, the state has been demanding that Bryan Kohberger provide an alibi notice. And the way that this works under the Idaho rules, it's a fairly common process in a lot of different states. But if a defendant is going to provide an alibi, they're going to present evidence of an alibi. You weren't there at the time of the crime. Then they have to give notice of that, and they have to provide notice of what
Donnie Coots coming through. What's up, dude?
Actual evidence in support of that is going to be. And the idea is because you don't want the defendant to be able to show up, on the day of trial, sandbag the prosecutor with an alibi defense that came out of nowhere. The prosecutor needs an opportunity to be able to investigate it.
You guys are killing me right now in the chat.
For almost a
Dude,
year.
Half Irish, welcome in here, first of all. But this one, this is a killer one.
Quite a few, about 10 months, I think, since the prosecutor filed their notice. This has been kind of hanging out there. We got a preliminary disclosure in fall of last year. But the defense is basically saying, look, he was out that night. He was driving around that night, but we don't have the specifics of exactly where he was at any given point in time and who's going to support that. So the judge had given them additional time to be able to make this disclosure. So that's what came out this week. And their disclosure is that they are going to be relying on the cell site location information data. They are contending that that is going to support his alibi that he was not in Moscow at the time of the offenses, that he was moving. His cell phone would put him in a different location than the location of the white car that the police were tracking on the video. And so by being able to decouple the phone from the white car, it essentially blows a pretty big hole in the state's circumstantial theory of how all of these pieces fit together, right? They found the white car out front of the King Road residence. They then tried to tie that in with Bryan Kohberger's phone. So if that link falls apart, it really calls into question their ability to link Bryan Kohberger to the white car, to the killings.
What are your personal thoughts? I mean, because I feel like Kohberger has been advertised as, such an obvious slam dunk guy did it, creepazoid, stalking around afterwards, showing up at parties, all the typical serial killer or mass murderer type things, helping the investigation, writing to the BTK killer, really, really, really bad dude. But it seems like not everything's holding up evidentiarily. But what are your feelings? Is it just a case that, they're picking holes in because there's holes that can be picked, and he really truly is a creep who probably did it, allegedly, obviously? What are your feelings? Because you know more about this than anyone.
Well, Eric, my feeling is that this case it's set to be potentially a exceptional example of the power of priming in the media and the extent to which the media has programmed the public from absolute day one of this case of him coming into the public arena as somebody who's creepy, as somebody who's scary, as somebody who's weird and different, maybe an incel, maybe has rage issues. I mean, all of these things that I got to tell you, just from my personal impressions, sitting in the courtroom, watching these hearings, seeing his demeanor, and having had experience with representing the kinds of people who commit violent crimes, he doesn't strike me as any of these things at all. He comes across as extremely well contained, good impulse control. If there's one thing about like a rage, multiple murder, stabbing kind of incident that characterizes it to me, it's lack of impulse control. I mean, so I just from kind of a personality standpoint, I'm really not seeing, I guess, the same thing that I feel like the priming is out there to suggest. So that's the real hurdle that he has, for the same reason that, I just talked about with jury selection, the belief perseverance thing. Once people have got it seized in their mind that he is guilty, he's the one that did it, it doesn't really matter how weak the state's case becomes, because people will make excuses. They will imagine scenarios for how he must still be guilty anyway, even though we've undermined a significant basis for thinking he was guilty in the first place.
We're going to find out that Andrew's been writing him letters in prison for the last couple of... I'm joking. But back it up 2 seconds. Someone made a joke about him killing cats. Is there any story about him from childhood killing animals?
Nothing that I have heard of, and certainly nothing that I would find credible at this point in time. The misinformation that has been out there in the media regarding this case is just legion. It is rampant. We just dealt with that.
From unnamed police sources.
From unnamed police, I mean, from everything, from people coming out of the woodwork, some from anonymous, some from, it's just all over the place. And so, to such an extent that they had to deal with this over the last couple weeks when the defense is trying to do their survey of the prospective jurors in support of their motion to change venue. And they're asking about so much of this misinformation that has been out there about this case. And it caused a big, hubbub, because the state doesn't like them answering these questions. They're arguing that the defense is tainting the jury. The defense is saying, we didn't put this information out there. Other people are putting these fake things, these false pieces of information out there, that he stalked the victims, that he followed them on social media.
And now they're saying that that's not real, right? That he never was stalking. So that's another thing that was heavily played into the media. I'm pretty sure I did live streams on that, I'd imagine. That he stalked them, that he followed them on social media. Is there anyone that has even verified anything along the... is the Reddit posts even verified? So many things was posted early on in the early days of this in the early days of this event, after he was arrested. Immediately fake profiles were being posted of Instagram, of TikTok. Has anything been verified that was actually his? I remember I did a show on some random social media site. I don't remember the name of it. I'm sure somebody here knows what I'm talking about. When where he actually went into detail about numerous things. It's a random site that still exists. I can't think of the name of it. But is that real? Is that verified? It's so easy to fake stuff like that. So I don't know, man. There's so much stuff out there, and the media picked up on everything in the beginning. Every fucking thing. No, not 4chan, man. It was like that. It starts with a C. And so I'd never heard of it before this happened. I want to say Cap's in the name, but I don't think Cap's in it. Maybe not. I don't know. It is a lot of lawyers. That was a lot of lawyers. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, that I was an actual lawyer, but no, I'm not. No, I'm not. Anything that I say, do not take that as with any kind of credence whatsoever in the way of law ever. Let's just calm down here and simmer down. I'm looking through the chat right now, seeing what's happening. I think we're going to find out some interesting things as this continues to go. I really do. Once we actually get into the trial, if that ever freaking happens. But even outside of the trial, just in these endless motions, and the defense seemingly trying to get information for months and months and months and months. Yeah, thanks everyone for hanging in here. I really appreciate it. Yeah, tomorrow night, I think 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be on Excited Utterances channel. We're going to be talking some more of this Bryan Kohberger Alibi stuff. So I'm excited to be on there. First time I'll be on that channel. She's from Australia. Salvador Dali, who comes through here a lot. He's on that channel. They were live before they came in here. So I think we're going to be hanging out with them, and it's going to be a good time. So please come over, hang out. Let me get their, I know that they portaled some people over here, but let me get her YouTube channel. Put it in the old chat there. The next time you will be seeing me on this channel will be Thursday, 9 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, give old hella a follow there. If you're not, if you're from this camp, and I appreciate all new folks that came over. No, Jay's hanging out here. No, him and Bob, man, they were fucking still hustling the Chad Daybell trial as we're getting ready to pivot over to the Karen Reed stuff, which is absolute madness. I know a lot of people were seeing all the stuff that's happening in that case outside the courthouse, but holy shit, once we can actually get into that, it's going to probably still be an absolute mess. And yeah, I know Coffindeffer was in Canton. Saw some pictures. She's hanging and banging, baby. Yeah, we're gonna be hanging out. It's gonna be good. I know, man. I saw it, dude. I saw it. We could show it. We can. I know, bro. I don't know what the hell's going on. Everything is just madness. Everything is just insanity. Hold on. We're just gonna. I just put eyes on it. I don't know nothing about nothing, son. Let's check it out. Let's see what happened today. We
got somebody here, a friend. We have
You're irrelevant.
Turtle Boy's going to prison.
Who is this guy?
Who are you? Turtle Boy's going to prison. You're going to prison. Turtle Boy's going to prison. His mom's name is Jerry Mulaney. He's so mad. He needs to remind you. Shame on you for what you did to the O'Keefe family. Shame on you for what you did to the O'Keefe family. Shame on you for what you did to the O'Keefe family. Shame on you for what you did to the O'Keefe family. Don't tell me. It's a lot worse. Shame on you. It's a lot worse. This guy is so. We got somebody there, a friend.
It's pretty insane. Like, dude, it's like watching pro wrestling. That's the only thing I'm going to reference into. It's like you're watching a pro wrestling show. You know, you're watching WCW. You're watching whatever your preferred organization is. And all of a sudden, here comes the other guy from the other organization. He's doing a run-in. He's coming in. He's on the street, baby. What's happening? What's he doing? Oh, I rang the bell! Ladies and gentlemen!
Let me tell you something,
Looks
brother!
like somebody that would smoke marijuana?
Yeah, it's the wrong button first, but...
Well, let me tell you something,
Dude, that's
brother!
the only thing I can reference it to. Like, it's like fucking... Yeah, like a wrestler did a run into another show, and he's like, oh shit, what's going on? And the other guy's like, what's happening? Is this really going on? Except it was real, except it really did happen. Like, sometimes when... Because that's happened in wrestling before. There's been some actual instances that weren't scripted, quote unquote. I don't know, man. Everything's absolutely insane. The world's insane. I don't know, man. I don't know. Yeah, WWE True Crime. That's where we're at. World Wrestling Entertainment True Crime. Ladies and gentlemen. Yo, thanks everyone seriously for hanging out here tonight. I appreciate the hell out of it. It's been a great stream. It's been a great night. If you haven't hit that like, do so as you head out the door. That does help us out in the old algorithm. I know that's annoying and stupid to have to keep saying, but that does help us out here. Please give it a share. Let other people know about Publicly Buzzed. And yeah, make sure you're following on X for sure. X is usually where I get the most wild. I'm excited about the viewers that we had on there tonight for this live. So hell yeah, between both, we had like 90, 100 people. Actually, yeah, more than that. It was like, that's a pretty fucking decent Kohberger stream, man. Fuck yeah. I appreciate it, guys. Seriously, man. We're going to keep growing this thing. If you in the Buzz Nation, baby,
Welcome to the party, pal.
we doing the damn thing. You know what I'm saying? We're not messing around. Jay knows what's going on. Thank you, Jay, brother. Appreciate it. Dan, thanks for hanging out, bro. Ricky Cougar back in the chat. We'll be here live on this show Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be talking something. I'm not exactly sure yet. It doesn't look like Karen Reed is going to be starting till next week. So it isn't going to be that. Maybe we'll be diving into this a little bit more. Again, tomorrow night, I will see you guys in the future. I'm going to be teleported into an Australian live stream. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited. I'm really excited. Ty with Toys hanging out also. Brooklyn, Mandy, Cammy, the mods, everyone that came through and donated. You guys are the fucking best. Let's keep this thing going to the moon. Love you guys. Have a great day. Have a great tomorrow. See you in the chats tomorrow.
Nothing to see here.